Welcome to Podsdale, brought to you by the City of Scottsdale. Join us to explore the stories that make our city a world-class community.
Welcome back to Podsdale, the official podcast of the City of Scottsdale. I'm Greer.
And I'm Gail, and it's that time of year, the crack of the bat, peanuts, Cracker Jacks, sunshine in Old Town, and thousands of fans heading to the ballpark.
Spring training is one of Scottsdale's signature seasons, and today we're talking about what it takes to get ready, what's new at the stadium, and what fans can expect this year.
So we're joined by Kyle Urban from the Scottsdale Stadium to give us a behind-the-scenes look of all things spring training and the San Francisco Giants, who, by the way, got a B grade from ESPN for their behind-the-scenes moves for all the players that are going to be playing this season. So they're going to have an exciting year.
We're excited to host them, and thanks for having me back on the podcast.
Yeah, Kyle, welcome to Podsdale. Before we get into everything, can you just tell us a little bit about your role at the stadium?
Sure. I serve as senior manager at Scottsdale Stadium, so I've been with the city 4 years. We counted in my role in terms of spring training, so this will be my fourth spring training. Prior to that, I was working at the University of California at two different universities and joined Scottsdale on a whim. My wife and I moved to Arizona and was fortunate enough to get the opportunity at that time. So it feels like I've been there forever, but only 4 years and fourth spring training.
What does your job look like during the season versus the off season? Because it's got to be different.
Dramatically, yeah. So during the season or during spring training, I guess February and March is what we would define as the entire season, even the weeks before games start. But essentially, our role when the Giants are in Scottsdale is to make it their second home. For us, normally we're used to doing everything at the ballpark. If we host an event, we're the person arranging the tickets, doing the security, setting up the event from start to finish and owning it that way. When the Giants are in town, we shift sort of into a support role. So we support the building around them. We make sure everything is ready for them. Once they're on site, if something breaks, we coordinate with facilities and other groups to make sure it's fixed. When games open, doors open, we speak for the building. So in emergency situations, we still have a huge role. We're often putting out fires when it comes to electrical issues, plumbing, custodial, some of those behind-the-scenes nitty-gritty things that aren't necessarily the sexy parts of our job. That's what we're there to do in spring. And more than anything, it's to build the relationship with the Giants, make sure they know that we value our partnership with them, and make sure that they know that the city's here to support them when they're in town, and they do the same of us year-round.
Why do you think spring training is such a big deal for Scottsdale?
There's a lot of reasons. I think you can walk into a ballpark during spring training, whether it's Scottsdale Stadium or one of the other 9 facilities around the valley, and feel the energy right away. It's palpable in the air. Mm-hmm. It's like if you were to take the Super Bowl and extend it over a 5-week period, it has the same sort of economic impact in our area. Bars are full, restaurants are full. We're right in the heart of Old Town, and so with that, you've got people that may go to a bar or restaurant and then immediately come to the game, and then once they leave the game, go frequent somewhere else and provide that valuable support to local businesses that they do get year-round, but not to the same extent. We're essentially introducing 12,000 strangers a day into a new place, and we take that responsibility very seriously and partner with our local businesses to make sure they're on the list of places that people can go. And while we don't do that in a vacuum with tourism support, we make sure that local business owners are bought into what we're doing at the ballpark and making sure that we're putting our best foot forward for Scottsdale, because when people leave the stadium after having a great experience, that carries over to wherever they go next.
I also think it's really cool that Scottsdale Stadium is literally in the heart of Old Town. So like you said, walking distance to legitimately anything. So you could make a whole day out of a ball game, which I think is really cool.
And it's nice because it's walking distance in the spring. It's not June. It's not July.
It's not too hot yet.
It's not the boys of summer. It's the men of spring. But what makes Scottsdale Stadium so different from, let's say, where the Padres play or the other stadiums in town?
Well, I think it's what Greer just mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is walkable. And actually, the Padres are a great example because in Peoria, they actually have built up a lot around the stadium. So they are not the same quite situation as we have, but they're doing a better job of kind of building that infrastructure around. But if you talk with the other stadium owners, and that's just a blanket term, not necessarily the ownership group, but the folks that work and roll similar to mine, most of them would trade locations with us in a heartbeat. I would say all, but there's probably a few that love theirs for one reason or another. But we're in the heart of a very urban core,
Totally.
in a place that people are actively walking around, riding bikes, e-bikes these days a lot of times, walking their dogs, going to bars, going to restaurants, and adding a ballpark into that mix typically requires some sort of big master plan. In our case, the stadium was there first compared to a lot of the businesses that are around. And so we had a foothold starting in 1955 with the first Scottsdale Stadium, first spring training in 1956. And if you look at kind of the time-lapse photographs of Old Town, you see the stadium there. It doesn't look the same as it does now, but the original wooden stadium on that site in 1955 really was there. I think it was Scottsdale's 5th year. We're celebrating 75 years of Scottsdale. We're celebrating 70 years of Scottsdale Stadium this year. And it's really cool to see how things have popped up around there.
When does prep start for you for spring training?
The day the Giants move out.
Oh, gosh.
And the reason I say that...
The grass.
yeah. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that if we're doing our jobs well, when the Giants are packing up and getting out of the building, the first question we ask is, what can we do better to improve for next year to make it more hospitable for you? Or what would you like to see changed? And those can be things like we had actually in our athletic training space in the visitors clubhouse. They wanted a hot water faucet. They only had cold water. Those are the little things that if they come back and don't have to ask you the question again, you know that you're doing right by your partner in this. And we're in a long-term agreement with the Giants, and they do the same for us. And so it really starts as they're walking out the door. And with our team, which fortunately has recently expanded with Chris joining our team, we get together almost immediately to debrief everything. Our staff consists of our operations team, which is a 6-person unit, and our grounds team, which across 2 facilities is 11 other folks. And so, including myself, that gets us to the 18 staff we have right now. And we all put our heads together to try and figure out what the best way to recap looks like. And that sort of sets the table for the next year. We also work with the Giants year-round to figure out what sort of capital improvements we can make in the facility. And a lot of times, and this is actually really interesting, it's how the stadium was built, the current version, after, I want to say it was the 1991, and I may be off by 1 year, so forgive me on that. And for folks listening, I'm doing my best. 1991 spring training ends. We know that we have to lower the old ballpark, blow it up, start fresh. They had 9 months to build it on that site. In 1991, 1992, that may have seemed a little bit more tenable. When we do smaller projects now, we oftentimes have to start April 1st, May 1st, June 1st in order to get it back around for spring training because we can't open a facility to the public that's unfinished. And so these things are happening 6, 12, 18 months in advance. And we know as soon as that last pitch is thrown and the last swing is made, we need shovels in the ground the next day if we are improving something.
It's like, we love you, but you got to go. Game's over. All right.
Exactly.
What does a typical game day look like for you? You're talking about the facilities, but a typical game day, what is that like? Facilities, fans, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going to speak more a blanket term for the operations team at Scottsdale Stadium, and I can sort of talk you through what the grounds perspective looks like on that as well. I lean on the experts we have in that space most of the time for all of our grounds needs, and they're wonderful at their job. But on the operations team, you are there early, so 5-6 hours before gates. If we have a 1 o'clock first pitch, we're there between 7 and 8. We're working with the Giants on the needs of the day. So if there's equipment that needs to be moved around, if there's, let's say, a toilet that's not working that we missed the day before for whatever reason, if there is something that wasn't clean to the extent that we needed it, or we got rain overnight and we have to clean the whole seating bowl again, you're coordinating that custodial effort to make sure that the stadium is ready to open to people. It's a lot of the stuff that most people would find fundamentally boring.
Right.
But when you are in that moment and you realize that the place that you sit in 12 months out of the year has its biggest 2 months and you're welcoming in 12,000 people, you want a presentable facility and one that you can be proud of.
Sure.
And that comes down to things being in the right place, power working the way it's supposed to, plumbing working the way it's supposed to. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but there's just a lot of unsexy elements of stadium management that I think are really important to call into question when you're thinking about what these jobs entail. And it's also past that, it's furthering the relationship with every member of the Giants staff. It's building the relationships that we have within the city. We'll have an on-call plumber. We'll have an on-call electrician. We have maintenance technicians from facilities that help us 24/7. And working with those folks and knowing that you have to lean on them in those moments to make it work. We work with streets and traffic to close down a lane on drink water. Work with PD, fire, IT to make sure people are safe, that everything's working in the building the way it's supposed to. You've got 12,000 people connecting to Wi-Fi, and it's a travesty when it doesn't work. We're fortunate that we've got some cell towers close by, so typically cell phone reception's not an issue for us like it may be in some other big events, but it's a lot of that stuff that fans don't think about when they walk in that help enhance the experience, and that's sort of where the operations team has to be. Just want to shine some light on our crew. So right now at Scottsdale Stadium, Grant Trent-Beth is our head groundskeeper. He started with us last September. Travis Wessel, Jack Heaslop, and Andy Forgione have been with us for a couple years. From the moment they open the gates in the morning, and if we've got a 1 o'clock game, it'll likely be 8 o'clock, they are there to make the facility look as best as it can. But the most important thing to them is that they've put a good product out for a ball field. You see pictures of Scottsdale Stadium during spring. You can pick out the mow lines that they chose for that particular day. You can see how perfect the dirt is, how the edges are. And I think in a lot of ways, they are incredibly unsung. And I think the city's done a good job, at least social media-wise, of highlighting some of the things that they do. But they are some of the best in the business. We're fortunate to have them in Scottsdale. And I think their game days, once they get to an actual game, it's the time where they can actually rest for an inning or two. Then they have to get up and drag the field between innings. And then they have to put the field to bed, which is all the tarps back on, so that they can wake up the next morning even earlier and be back on site for practice. So those are the guys that really carry us in terms of how we show out during spring training. If you look at social media, it's all the people at the field in the background. That field is their artwork.
Not a brown spot.
Not at all.
Well, and I think it's really commendable that you mentioned your staff is 15, 16 people total. And the fact that you can literally take care of an entire baseball field that is attended by so many people, I think that's really cool. And you wouldn't really think about that when you're a spectator in the stadium. You said like those little things that you wouldn't think about. Like I wouldn't think about those when I walk into the ballpark, but I appreciate that it's there and it's clean and it's done. So it's really cool that you guys are able to do all that. We've chatted about this before, but I know last year there was a big upgrade to the stadium, the left field berm. Can you tell us a little bit about those improvements that happened before last year's season?
Yeah, and I think it's cool because fans got a chance to see it in action last spring. To be candid, we didn't really know what we had until we saw it operate during spring training, and sort of what it added. But if you're familiar with Scottsdale Stadium, we've got grass berms in both left field and right field. Left field was just a big hill, essentially, with a few trees on it where people could go with a lawn ticket and sit there. You didn't have the access to concessions. You had some shade, but not a ton. And you certainly didn't have a big structure up there. It was also sort of the desert, if you will, for bathrooms for us. We had a very, very small bathroom complex that often backed up with lines, and this structure has really changed that. So what we did with the left field berm was actually added capacity by building on the north side of it, which just used to be dead space. It would face the wrong direction. It was the downside of a hill. We built a very, very large patio in left field. Underneath that patio, we built the largest restroom complex on our property. On that patio, half of it is shaded, half of it's uncovered with some oak trees planted in it. We've added more trees to the left side of the berm specifically to add shade for folks that want to sit there. And it gives us the opportunity specifically for spring training to have concessions set up there. People can access what they need without having to leave the berm itself. It also affords us a year-round event space, and I think that's really important for the city. I know we'll tackle it later on, sort of what now looks like versus the other 10 months of the year. But our event program is really robust, and adding as many event spaces as we can at Scottsdale Stadium that can be rented out year-round is of high priority for us. And that addition kind of helps us create the environment that we're looking for to bring in businesses that are looking for a full stadium rental. Because before we had built out in 2023, we opened our first base patio, which was a huge improvement over a bleacher. The Charo Lodge has been there for some time, but it was improved in 2020 as part of a larger clubhouse project and press box renovation. Left field had sort of been the albatross. It had been the thing that we'd been trying to tap into, figure out how we can improve it to create this full stadium connectivity. And I think we've really done that now. There's probably some finishing touches that need to be made there, but in general, that project has done wonders for us. And an exciting update, I guess, because this wasn't as publicized, but this year, though it's going to look exactly the same when you walk in, we actually replaced the scoreboard in partnership with the Giants. So you're looking at a same size board, but a board that's from 2026 as opposed to 2014. And so it's very digital. It's in the new age. When the sun's beating on it, fans before really couldn't see the board.
Yeah.
Now you can.
Oh, yeah,
and it's
you can.
That's
vibrant.
cool.
Yeah, I watched it today, actually, for like 2 hours. I was in meetings in the press box from 1 to 3, and you could still see everything very clearly. And then a small other upgrade that we made, we had 2 very old school scoreboards that were on either side, the first and third baseline of our facility up above the press box that you can see when you're in the seats. Those are both digital ribbon boards now. So some small things to improve that may not jump out at first, but in the day and age that we live in, it's really important to have the digital displays that are actually, legible
Totally.
from where you're sitting. And so we're really excited about that as well.
So it seems that necessity, bigger bathrooms, and the idea of expanding its use beyond spring training is what prompted these changes.
100%. And I think every project that we do, we ensure there is utility year-round to the city and enhanced utility for 2 months for the Giants. We are very much a 12-month program at Scottsdale Stadium, and we are citizen-owned as far as we're concerned, city-owned property. We have to keep the interest of the Scottsdale taxpayer in mind when we are going through any sort of project. And so that's been really top of mind for us as we've sort of brainstormed our stadium and our ballpark over the years. And I think we're looking to continue that into the future because these multi-purpose spaces are really what's becoming popular. And we weren't trendsetters per se, but we certainly do have people, other Cactus League ballparks that are interested in the construction that's going on and what we're doing with multi-use spaces. We actually took some inspiration from local ballparks when making the first base patio. Left field's kind of our own shtick. It's just our spin on what we see happening. But spring training is a microcosm of everything that's happening in baseball, and that's that not everybody's going to baseball games to watch the game.
Right.
And that's certainly, neither here nor there for us. But understanding the trends that are around you is something you need to lean into if you're a professional baseball franchise. The Giants certainly have done that. And for a stadium for us, where we have the Giants for 16, 17 games this spring, we have to think about the other 10 months. And that's really where these changes come from, and the reason why we're so happy with the way they've turned out, specifically with the patios.
You mentioned having like a robust amount of events that are in the stadium in those 10 months, that spring training isn't happening. Are there any really cool events that have been put on recently that come to mind for you?
Yeah, we have a couple. I'll shout out Phil on our operations team. He worked to bring in Brunch Fest for the first time in December.
I walked past that and I was like, what is this?
Yeah, so
It looked delicious.
So working with their event planner, Brunch Fest essentially brought in a bunch of local businesses that are brunch purveyors, if you will, and allowed people to purchase a ticket to come in, try the food and drink that they had to offer. And it was just built around people that really love brunch. We
Pancakes
also,
at 2 o'clock.
That's right.
Who doesn't love pancakes
I
at 2
know.
o'clock?
I mean, what's wrong with that?
That's right. We also partnered with the Dreamy Draw Music Festival this year for the first time.
Yeah.
Scottsdale Stadium has had smaller concerts in the past, mostly local bands, still a space that, we'd be happy to be in as well. But for us to kind of step up to the plate with our partners at Oh Wow and Scottsdale Arts to bring the Lumineers and Vampire Weekend, both bands that I'm a fan of, to our ballpark in a very unique setup and space was pretty awesome. And I think that shows you sort of the potential that we have in the future. We aren't necessarily set up as easy as like a concert venue, but we can get there with a little effort. And that's what we're working on right now, is trying to bring more large-scale events that benefit the community in.
I will say I attended Dreamy Draw and I went to the stadium to watch it. It's crazy that you guys were able to convert it like that. I walked in with a few of my friends and it didn't even feel like a baseball stadium, which I thought was pretty cool.
And what's crazier is we played baseball on that same field 2 days after it ended.
Which is insane.
That's a shout out to Grant and our grounds crew.
That's so cool.
It was amazing to do. In an ideal world, would we do that? Probably not.
Sure.
But out of necessity, we did. And we look forward to continuing our partnership with Dreamy Draw and looking at other opportunities for ourselves in the future in that space.
Well, what does Scottsdale Stadium mean to those local businesses in Old Town? What is the economic impact? Because, you can walk there. There's a trolley to take people around. What's the overall impact for them?
I think when we talk to local business owners, they are more than open to have their places filled with Giants fans or fans of whatever team. I think when you look at all of the spring training articles that kind of exist in the public sector before spring training opens, you see a lot of interviews specifically with bar and restaurant owners in Old Town that say this is the best 45 days of our year. This is the most impactful piece we could have. I read a quote today. I can't exactly say the source or where it came from. I can't remember that information. But one of the business owners was alluding to the fact that it's really easy when the money's flowing in that 45 days to feel like they're on top of the world. But they have to talk themselves back down and remind themselves that it's only a 45-day period that it happens. But some general stats for you. I don't have them broken down for Old Town. We hope to in the near future, actually, specifically knowing what our stadium's impact looks like. But across the 10 facilities in the Cactus League, we're responsible for about $764 million of economic impact across the valley.
Isn't that like a Super Bowl?
It's a little less than a Super Bowl. So earlier,
PIR maybe?
So earlier when I said it's like the Super Bowl, it's a little bit different than that. But it does qualify as a mega event. Spring training, the Cactus League itself is considered a mega event, and it happens across, 10 facilities for 6 weeks. And to think about just the sheer quantity of people you're bringing in, you may have on any given day, well, actually most days, you've got 7 or 8 ballparks that are active, maybe at different times, maybe at the same time. And with that, you've got between those 70 or 80,000, maybe 90, maybe 100 attending baseball games locally that all need somewhere to stay, to lay their head.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm sold out on my Airbnb.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So a place to stay, which supports all of our local hotels. Of course, they need meals, which supports our local restaurants. They're interested in shopping typically and shopping around and looking what's local. And so that helps our small shops, especially in the Old Town area. And so you've got folks that are here to have a good time, in a lot of ways to spend money that they know they've budgeted for this specific trip. And you've got local folks that are just coming out to watch a ball game. And so it's a balance between those two. But the economic impact and isolating that is just massive. And I think for the local business owner that sees a positive piece of spring training, it's how they get past the fact that, we may jam up Scottsdale Road through Old Town when we release a game or have a game.
Right.
We may, because our parking situation is not ideal, it may mean a car stays in front of a business for an extra 2 hours that it normally wouldn't have. And we understand those impacts too, but I think when you look at the bigger picture of the impact, what it means for businesses, what it means for the people here. I mean, it's part of the reason people want to live in Scottsdale is we're the epicenter of the events world, the sports world, for not only spring training, also waste management. and the events world for everything that happens at Westworld in the spring. And so I think our super season, as it's termed, from January through March, is really special around here. And I think it helps build sort of the culture of who we are as a Scottsdale. And as we look at employees of Scottsdale, I think there's palpable excitement across the board too when spring training comes.
Yeah, I notice the excitement in Old Town already. The first game is this weekend, but even businesses have their Giants flags up, businesses have specials and stuff catered to spring training. So it's definitely an exciting time in Old Town, and it's definitely the place to be before or after a game. Kyle, what do you think, what's your favorite part of spring training? Do you have a favorite part?
Honestly, it's seeing everything that we've worked so hard to prepare for go off without a hitch.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing better than that. I think it's seeing my team, my teammates work long hours side by side, keep their head down, understand what we're there to do, and that's to deliver the best possible product to people that walk through the door. It's something that we can really be proud of. And I think you get that in a lot of jobs, once, twice, 3 times a year. We get 16 times to show ourselves off. And then I think the interaction we have with just the public and hearing people compliment the space, you can't walk through the stands without hearing someone compliment the field and what it looks like. Opposing teams tell our grounds crew how good of a job they've done. They're happy to play there. I think there's a lot of pride going into what we do. And when that's validated, it's very validating, I guess.
Sure.
That stadium is so Scottsdale. Let's just say that, okay?
Yeah.
What I like about it is I grew up on baseball. I love baseball. But for somebody who's never been to a baseball game, what's so special about spring training? What would you say is? And what would you say to encourage them to go take in a game?
Yeah, I think
because it's easier to park than in downtown Phoenix.
They also have their challenges there. I think it's access, first and foremost. The Giants open the gates 2 hours before first pitch, which is unusual even among Cactus League teams. But if you've got little ones or you're just, interested in soaking in the entire ballpark experience yourself, pre-game, you can walk down to an area that may not be your seat that's right on the sideline, have a conversation with the player, talk with the staff that are down there. It's not uncommon for the Giants to sign anything and everything that the little ones might put in front of them during spring. I think it's an environment that's competitive because it's a sport, but it's more laid back, right, than when they're in the regular season and every game is the win or loss is kind of a do or die thing. Players want to win, but ultimately spring trainings where teams also need to see reps from guys that may not see the field in the regular season. And so you not only get to see your star players at any given time, but you also get to see the rookie who just broke into the league that's trying to make it. You see the guy that played Double-A last year that got called up on the spring training roster for the first time, and that's their opportunity to really prove themselves on the field during spring, even though it may not seem like a big deal to the rest of us. That's livelihood that's being determined.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the average person that may not be a baseball fan, you can appreciate that and you can feel it. I think spring, as a fan, way more laid back, slightly more raucous atmosphere, not in a way that's dangerous or off-putting to anybody. But
it's not like the 16th hole, don't worry.
It's a little
That's over.
Little different than that, but there are certain areas of the ballpark, they're just alive. I mean, I keep mentioning that. It's you just feel good when you're walking around there and it's chock full of people and everybody's enjoying themselves. So
it's America's pastime. Like you see a wide swath of America. And it's always funny to me when you know somebody and all of a sudden they've got their baseball gear on. They're like, how'd you not know I like baseball? I have season tickets. Like it really is a pastime that everybody could love.
Yeah. And I run into people being from, California originally, and growing up following the Giants, I see people that I've met at certain points in my life that have no idea that I'm down here, just walking through the ballpark, taking their vacation here, all of that, which is interesting. Very well settled here in Arizona now and love it. And, local friends that buy tickets and come in, it's nice to see them enjoying themselves. And the good part about being in my role is that you've always got the equivalent of secret shoppers in there. So if I know someone went to a game, they'll get the text from me later in the day, like, what did you like? What didn't you like? What can we do better? Any issues with lines? That sort of stuff. And that feedback goes a long way. And that's even among staff members in Scottsdale that happen to buy a ticket and show up for a game. I think we are very much motivated to provide the best product we can in partnership with the Giants and seeking out that feedback all the time.
Well, Kyle, before we wrap this up, I do have some rapid fire questions that I think we're both dying to know the answers to. So these are going to be some short, fast questions for you. Do you prefer a day game or a night game?
I do love to sleep, but I think there's nothing better than the lights being on in our facility, and it's just a cool spot for a night game. You don't get to see Camelback as well, but it is a very cool spot for a night game.
Best spot in the stadium to watch a game?
First base patio or directly underneath the first base patio and the seats there, and I'll tell that to anyone who listens if they're looking to buy a ticket. If the patio is selling a single game that day, highly recommend it. Great views of Camelback, great views of the field. You're up a little bit from the action.
I will say I love a lawn ticket. Personally, I like sitting on the lawn. Do you have one can't miss food item in the stadium?
It's tough to narrow it down. I will say there's the same group of folks that are working the tenders and fries stand there.
Sure.
And as basic as that is, they are so good and they do such a good job.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
Most underrated part of the ballpark?
For spring, I would say the Charro Lodge is an incredibly great asset to have. Scottsdale Charro is obviously a huge partner to us, year-round relationship with the city, year-round relationship with the stadium. But the Charro Lodge, you can buy a ticket at springtraining.com through the Charros directly. They own that domain, which is awesome. And you get all you can eat, all you can drink, and a great vibe and atmosphere up there.
Very cool. Okay, we have one last question. What would be your walk-up song if you were stepping up to bat?
That is tough. I wish I prepared for this because I didn't see this question.
That's okay. If you don't have one right off the bat, that's okay, Gail.
I know mine.
I would probably go like the good part of Highway to the Danger Zone.
Okay, that's a good one.
Which is ironic because I cannot hit for power at all. But they'd probably do something like that.
I would want, not that you asked me, Greer, because I want to know yours, but mine would be, "This girl is on fire."
Ooh, that's a good one.
I hope my bat would be on fire, though.
I asked the question, but I don't know if I have an answer. Oh, no. Honestly, anything early 2000s. Just like a hype song. I can't think of one off the top of my head, so I can't believe I asked this. But yeah, probably some early 2000s hype song. Well, Kyle, we appreciate you being here. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with listeners before you head out?
Yeah, so if you are local to Arizona, when you go to the San Francisco Giants ticketing page, sfgiants.com/tickets, you can click on offers. And on offers, there's actually an Arizona Residence Rewards program. And what that is discounted tickets if you live in Arizona.
Oh, cool.
So you do have to do a quick verification. It takes a minute, and it's through a company called XNow. Once you do that verification, the ticket allotment opens up to you, and you can actually get your tickets at a discount throughout all of spring training. And if you compare it, sometimes it can be as much as 30%. Some games, marquee games, more like 10%. Still saves you nonetheless. And I would recommend to anyone that's listening, start with the Giants ticketing site before you go to a StubHub or SeatGeek, any of that, to check resale, because oftentimes those are going to be a lot more expensive. So we've had folks come to the gate and say, "Hey, I paid $150 for a lawn seat." It's like, well, you didn't have to, because we're selling them still for $40. So certainly go to the source first for ticketing. I would give that advice universally across all venues, but especially at Scottsdale Stadium. And know that you can bring in a bottled water per person too, as long as it's sealed.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being on Podsdale today. It's always a pleasure.
It was nice meeting you,
Nice to meet you as well.
you know, I hope they have a really good season. And I have a feeling that the only thing going up besides the score is, our presence at the stadium because we have so many options to use the stadium those other 10 months of the year. So
100%.
well done. Well done.
Thank you. And I'm sure they're happy you're wearing your orange today as well. So.
Didn't even think about that, but yes.
Go Giants.
I was in the Bay Area at Cal when it was that bridge series.
Oh, yeah.
When it was the A's versus the Giants, and my cousin went, boy, what a time to be alive.
So important it shook the earth.
It did. That was nuts too.
Yeah. We're happy that they haven't had to worry about that for quite some time.
Amen to that. And nor do we.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's all for this episode of Podsdale. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. Share episode ideas and provide your feedback by emailing communications@scottsdaleaz.gov. Thanks for listening.